One of the most challenging parts of being a creator is feeling stuck and not knowing what to post next. But there is one pretty specific way that you can prevent that struggle, and that is by planning ahead. In particular, I am a fan of planning content about a month in advance. I personally find that that's the best balance for keeping your content fresh and relevant, but also not waiting until the last minute. So you can incorporate trends into your content this way, and don't worry, I'm going to tell you how I do it. But you can also feel organized and on top of things and not like you're always rushing and always behind when it comes to creating your content. And the best part is, in today's episode, I'm going to tell you how to go through this planning process to get a month of Instagram content ready to go in just 1 hour. And yes, I do mean planning the concepts, planning the ideas. Obviously, I don't expect you to shoot and edit and write your captions for all of your month's content within just 1 hour. No, this hour is just kind of like a power hour of focus, of going through potential avenues for getting inspiration and ideas and organizing them and writing them down so that you have a good starting place for actually creating content. Because I personally find that this is the stage where it's the easiest to get stuck. It's the easiest to feel like you're out of ideas or that, you just don't even know where to start. So you can easily end up spending like way too much time just like thinking about what to post. And so that's what this hour is designed to combat. It's just like, put this on your calendar, go to your favorite coffee shop, sit down for an hour, and by the end of this hour, you will have a content calendar full of ideas. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Creator Club. We're going to get into this more in just a couple minutes, but one of the best ways to get ideas for future content is to take a look at how your past content has performed. And my favorite way to do that is by using Dash Hudson, who's the sponsor of the Creator Club podcast. Dash Hudson is a very visual, dashboard-based analytics platform where you can sync your Instagram, but also your TikTok, your YouTube, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Pinterest, so that all in one place, you can see the metrics from across your social platforms. I personally love using Dash Hudson to keep an eye on the performance of my Instagram content. You can look at Instagram Insights in the app, but it's just not as user-friendly, and you also can't see as much data. It only goes back 90 days. So I love using Dash Hudson to look at long spans of time, how my reels have been performing, how my stories have been performing, to see the larger arch of progress in terms of how my audience is connecting with my content. And Dash Hudson has just released their social media trends report for 2024. Not only does Dash Hudson keep me up to date with my own social media metrics, but they're also reporting on the industry metrics as a whole, which is so helpful for content creators and social media managers. In the report, you can check out the trends surrounding boosting content. Should you boost your posts? Which posts should you be boosting? And what results can you expect? And the different ways organic, paid, and creator content can drive results for brands. I find this kind of thing fascinating, and I know it's so helpful for people creating content, whether it's for our own brands or clients or a brand that we work for. Overall, I love using Dash Hudson to check my insights, and I'm sure that you will too. And as a Creator Club podcast listener, you get a free trial of Dash Hudson when you go to dashhudson.com/creatorclub. It's also linked in the show notes. And as always, thanks to Dash Hudson for sponsoring the Creator Club podcast. Okay, my friend, sit down, grab your cup of coffee, grab your notebook. It's time for our hour of content planning. And by the end of this hour, like I said, you will have some content ideas on a content calendar ready to execute on. So let's dive right in to step one. Step number one is referencing your idea database, or making an idea database if you don't already have one. Here's the thing. Your girl is a note taker. I have always loved writing down my ideas, my future tasks, whether that's in the form of a notebook, the Notes app on my phone, or more recently, I've become obsessed with the app Notion because there's a desktop version, there is a mobile version, and it's a database-based productivity app, which can take so many different forms. There's a ton of customization to it. And what I have created for myself is a content calendar database that has multiple different views. So I can view this content in the format of a calendar, but I can also view it in the format of a table or a list. And by viewing this content calendar database in different ways, I'm able to have a section where it's like my inbox of ideas, where I just throw stuff in there as I think of it. And then I have my finalized content calendar. And all of this is organized based on tags so that the correct items show up in the correct spots. If you want to get started with this kind of thing and it feels overwhelming, I do have a content creator starter kit, which includes all of my best-selling Notion templates. That'll be linked in the show notes as well. But the point is, you don't actually have to use Notion. You can do this on pen and paper if you prefer, or you could use like an Excel spreadsheet. But you do want to have some place where you can organize the content that you are planning to post, like this is the concrete plan that I'm going to execute on, and then also a place where you can just kind of collect all of your ideas. And it's important to have this up and running because prior to sitting down and having your power planning hour of content, you want to be able to passively collect ideas that come to you when you're in the shower, when you're out for a walk. I feel like the best ideas always come to us when we're not actually trying to work on them. So you want to have a place that's really easy for you to capture these ideas. So in my Notion database, I actually have a shortcut on my phone Notion app so that I can just easily tap that when I have an idea, and it pulls up the section of the database where I put new short form content ideas. And then I can just type it in there, and then I know it's safe and sound, ready for me when I do need to sit down and plan my content. So this one is a bit more of a tip that you want to implement on an ongoing basis so that you're always capturing these ideas that come to you throughout your day. So then when it's time to plan content, you can sit down and review the entries to your content ideas database and use that as your starting point for brainstorming. As you review these potential ideas that you've written down over the past week or 2 weeks, not all of them might be still relevant. You might feel like, oh, that was an idea for a trend that kind of already passed by, or I don't feel as passionate about creating this idea anymore. And that's okay. You can delete it, but you probably will have at least, 3 to 4 good ideas that you could potentially add to your content calendar as we are planning. And also, as part of the first stage of this content planning process, take a few minutes at the beginning of your power hour of planning, let's say about 10 minutes maybe, to take a look at your past ideas and then also just brain dump any other ideas that you've had recently that you haven't added to this database. So you just kind of have everything in a list, and then we're not judging any of the ideas yet. We're not considering what's going to perform the best or what we want to necessarily execute on. You're just trying to capture everything so that you have something to go on when we do start to make those strategic decisions a little bit later. The second step in our hour-long content planning process is checking in with your audience. And I would advise that you take about 15 minutes to do this. Basically, once you've had a little chat with your past self via your idea database and you've looked at the ideas you've come up with over the past few weeks, it's now time to have a little chat with your audience and see what they are interested in seeing from you. Obviously, a huge factor in the equation of what content you're going to be posting is what your audience wants to see from you. And one of the best ways to find that out is by actually connecting with them one-on-one. So this is what I'm going to advise you do with the next 15 minutes of your content planning hour. And we're going to kind of kick off a process right now that you're going to revisit at the end of the hour. So first things first, you want to have some conversations with the followers that you kind of know by name. So these are your MVP, most engaged members of your community that you see their names pop up in the comment section, in the likes, they're replying to your stories. Think about maybe 3 or 4 of those people right now in your mind. Maybe write them down or commit them to memory so that when you're doing this planning hour, I want you to send a DM to each of them and reach out and say something along the lines of, hey, I really appreciate all your support of my content. It means the world to me that I see you in my comment section and that you appreciate what I'm posting here. I'd love to hear some feedback from you about what you would like to see in this next month. What kind of goals do you have surrounding insert your niche here? What kind of struggles do you have surrounding insert your niche here? And then end off the message again with something like, again, just really appreciate your time. Really want to make sure I'm designing content that's valuable to you. So send off that message to a few of those people that you kind of have that existing relationship with. You know that they are engaging with your content, because these are the type of people that are going to give you like the best ideas and the best inspiration for content that you can make going forward. And it's just so helpful to hear it in their own words. That's the beauty of talking with people in your audience and asking them for feedback, is you get to hear from your community members about what they're going through, what they're working towards, what their struggles are, using the language that they use. So you can literally use those same words, and that is going to help you connect so much better with your audience members and potential new audience members. In addition to getting their direct feedback about your content, it's also good to just chat with your audience in a more casual sense as well. I really advise you to take the time for your DMs, for those one-on-one convos, because not only does it build up that individual relationship, but it just gives you a better sense of what kind of journeys your audience is on and how you can better serve them throughout it. So definitely prioritize those one-on-one conversations, but for the sake of this planning hour, send out 3 to 4 of those DMs, let them cook for a while. We'll come back later once your people have had a chance to reply to you. Okay, so that is one part of gathering feedback from your audience during this little 15-minute stage of the process. The next part is that you can post in a more public forum as well, gathering feedback from your wider audience, not just the individuals that you've selected to reach out to. So there's a variety of ways you can do this. I feel like the classic way is creators will kind of run out of ideas and then just put a question box up on their story and say, hey, what do you want to see from me next month? And, I get it. That is a very efficient, sort of low effort on the part of the creator way to gather some inspo. But in my opinion, if you do that too frequently, it's probably going to start getting annoying to your audience, because it's kind of your job to come up with the content. Like, yes, we want to gather inspiration from our community, but that's your thing, to come up with the content ideas and to post it. And there's not really a lot for your audience to go on when you just say, what do you want to see from me next month? So instead of that, I want to make a couple suggestions of ways that you can gather audience feedback without putting too much work on them. And this will also probably result in you getting more responses because you've just made it easier for them. So instead of just vaguely saying, what kind of content do you want to see from me next month, I want to encourage you to come up with specific prompts and even some like either or options for your audience to select. So you do a little bit of brainstorming, in this 15-minute period of like a couple options of like themes you might want to focus on, or you could, referencing back to that database that we went through in step 1, come up with a couple of those ideas and like throw them out there for people and say, of these 3 YouTube video ideas, which would you be most interested in? Turn it into a poll. Or even throw out the question box, but have some kind of prompt around like, if I were to make more content around the theme of X and Y, what would your biggest questions be? That gives people a place to start thinking from, and you're going to get much more high quality responses than just some generic, like, tell me what you want to see. Give people a starting point so that when they are thinking about it and they're brainstorming, they're not starting from zero, and then you're going to get even more high quality responses back. So think about polls with options. That's very easy because people can just select one of the list. That's super easy to engage with. And if you are going to do question box, give it some kind of starting point or theme so that people aren't just going from like zero and trying to come up with new content ideas for you. Because what I have found is if you put out the question box and say, what do you want to see from me? Most likely what you're going to get back is a variety of responses referencing content that you've already done. The kind of thing that people have seen from you already, because that's what they associate you with, which is fine. It can give you a sense of what's most popular out of your different, content pillars potentially. But you do, if you want new stuff, if you want something fresh, you do need to put in a little bit more effort in terms of giving people a starting point for their brainstorming. So that's what we want to do in this little 15-minute chunk where we're talking to your audience. So the check boxes are: send off a message to your 3 or 4 most engaged audience members, asking them for feedback, thanking them for their engagement, etc. And then number 2, come up with a few prompts, a few options that you can kind of put on your stories for your audience, and see what kind of feedback you get for that. So we're gonna circle back to this in a few minutes once we've done a little bit more brainstorming, but you want to get those feelers out there so we can start gathering feedback. Step number 3 is reviewing your analytics. Obviously, I mentioned this at the top of the episode, and I really do think this is an essential part of the process. So in our most recent step number 2, we reached out to our audiences directly, like literally speaking with them in the DMs or via story responses. This is kind of an indirect method of polling your audience to see what content they're interested in, because the truth is, this is kind of the tea about how people interact on Instagram. Sometimes they will tell you that they want one thing, but the analytics may say something very different. So you really want to keep an eye on that and not be swayed too much from the kind of qualitative data that you gather. Obviously, that's important. But for example, if you're kind of getting feedback from a few people saying, oh, we want more photos. But if you look at your analytics and you realize that every time you post a photo, it like is way lower engagement than when you post reels, you realize that the analytics kind of doesn't lie. The analytics shows you how people actually behave when you post certain kinds of content and how certain kinds of content are probably going to be performing for you in the future. So that's why it's good to check in with the numbers, because it can give you a really good sense of, what has done well for me, what's not done well for me. And the way that I would encourage you to go about this is try to pull up your content from like the last 90 days at minimum. Like, especially if you're not posting super frequently, you're going to want to expand that time even further so that you can get a better sampling of data. But look at your content from the past 90 days and look at your top performing, say 10 posts. And I want you to write down some of the common themes among those posts. Like, what about them is similar? What about them, has potentially drawn in my audience more effectively than my other content? So, for example, when I look at my top performing Instagram content, it tends to be reels where I've discussed making money and income streams. So that is not entirely surprising to me, because that kind of thing, it's going to be performing well on Instagram. People want to know how to make money as a content creator, and anything that kind of shows, flashy numbers, that sort of thing, it's going to do well. So that makes sense to me. So I can kind of commit that to memory. Like, okay, the kind of content that does well for me often talks about how to make money as a creator. Okay, cool. Add that to my list of stuff that I might create this coming month. That's just one example. Obviously, it's going to look different in every niche and for every creator, but really take a look at your analytics, look at your top performing 10 posts, look at your bottom performing 10 posts, and figure out what the commonalities and themes are among them. And that is going to be the key to being able to replicate your success and minimize your potential like lower performing content moving forward. I will say, though, it's important to keep in mind when you are looking at your analytics that you don't let yourself be convinced into only creating the stuff that kind of goes the most viral. Now, of course, if your main goal is just audience growth and continuing to reach more people, that is going to be effective. Recreating your viral posts will help you reach more people. But sometimes the limitation of analytics is that it doesn't always represent the relationship building and the community growth that can result from content that is just meant for your most sort of attached and like engaged audience members. So going back to that photo example that I mentioned before, it's true that your analytics might show that your photo carousels don't perform as well as your reels. However, your photo carousels may be doing the job of connecting you with your most engaged audience members and sharing a little bit of your life. And maybe you actually have great conversations in the comments of those photo carousels with even just a small group of people. That's okay too. It serves a purpose. So just keep that in mind, that while I said before, analytics don't lie, it's true. It will tell you what's going to reach the largest number of people, which has its benefits. But it's also important to maintain that relationship building strategy, and that you not only continue to strive to reach new audiences, but you also are nurturing the relationship with your existing audience. Step number 4, big warning here. This one is going to be 10 minutes and 10 minutes only because we are scrolling our Reels feed. Here's the thing. You need to put a timer on for this because these apps, man, they are designed to keep us watching for as long as possible. Okay, that's the whole name of the game. So when you are planning content, you need to be very cautious about not getting absorbed in just watching Reels for the sake of entertainment, but that you're going through Reels actually for the sake of inspiration and getting ideas. So that's why setting a little timer is so essential. This is the time to just scroll through the old Reels feed, see what catches your eye, see if there's any new unique formats or styles that you might want to try out. You can also be browsing for trends a little bit at this point, but you don't necessarily need to be applying exact audios to the content plans that you're coming up with at this stage. This is more so for getting ideas of how are people creating successful Reels now? What's the kind of thing that's showing up on my feed again and again that tends to have a high number of likes and comments? That'll be a little like proxy for you to see how many views it maybe has. The way you could see the views is by actually going to the person's profile and taking a look there. But without having to take that extra step, you can just see how many likes and comments does it have. That's a good indicator of like how viral this video has gone. And you can start to take a look at, again, the themes, similar to how you analyze the themes in what content performs the best for you in terms of your analytics. You could also start to see what's the kind of content that performs the best in terms of what shows up on my Reels feed and what do they have in common and what kind of strategies could I adopt from those videos that I'm seeing. So there's many different ideas and kind of concepts you can get from scrolling. It's important that you don't just like straight up copy somebody, but I think we all know that. I think one of the safest ways to gain inspiration is from actually content outside of your niche. So if you like engage with and see stuff from people that aren't doing the exact same thing as you, that can be a really great way to get format or style inspiration. And then you kind of fill in the blanks with what the substance of the content is going to be. So for me, I follow a lot of travel and like kind of van life content creators. And so sometimes I can get inspiration from them for my social media tips content by seeing kind of what formats and what styles perform well for them. And then I apply that to my own niche. So that is kind of a tactic that you can use. So you want to spend 10 minutes scrolling, writing down ideas, formats, styles, potential approaches that you could use. I promise I'm going to address the whole trending audio thing in the next step. But the point is for now, set a 10-minute timer and just take in as many ideas as you can. And then once that timer goes off, you got to actually stop. Okay, we have arrived at step number 5, which is scheduling your ideas, which I suggest you take about 15 minutes to do. So at this point, you have spent 45 minutes researching what content you might want to make based on your audience feedback, your analytics, and your past ideas, and also what is showing up on the Reels page these days. Now that you've kind of gone through all of those steps and we're actually going to start scheduling, this is the point when you want to circle back to those conversations that you prompted in the DMs. You want to take a look at how people are replying to your story, like to your polls, to your question boxes. I will say this is where, just for like the benefit of time, it can be helpful to like wait until the end of the 24-hour life cycle of your story to go back and get all of the responses. But for the sake of our power hour today, you can check back in and see what has been coming through in terms of feedback and what your kind of MVP audience members have been saying. And with all of these ideas that we've been slowly gathering in the database, it's time to actually assign them to certain days. You're going to want to do this based on your established content strategy or content framework. So let's say you want to post a reel Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then every Thursday you post a carousel. Maybe that's your approach. You're going to, determine that. We've talked about this a lot in past episodes, how you determine that piece of the puzzle. We'll link an episode in the show notes if you want more information about how to figure out your content strategy or content framework. But the point is you kind of have these empty boxes on your content calendar because of that pre-established strategy, and you're just going to start filling it in with the ideas that you've been listing from all the inspiration we've gathered. Now I want to talk briefly about how trending content fits into this process, because you might be thinking, okay, so I'm planning my content calendar a whole month in advance. How do I know what the trending audio on Instagram is going to be 3 weeks from now when I actually post this? So this is my personal approach to this at the moment, because I've gone through waves where I have been kind of just posting on the fly week by week so that I can take advantage of the current trending audio or whatever. But what I've realized after like a year of posting reels consistently and seeking out those trends and seeing like what people tend to be doing, I've kind of discovered that there's a formula to almost every Reels trend, at least the ones that show up on my Reels feed. And that is a montage of B-roll. So just like aesthetic footage of you, of your environment, of your life, paired with some text over top, whether that be inspirational or it tells a story or it provides information or it prompts you to read the caption. And all of that is just simply synced up with the trending audio of the moment. So here's what that means for your ability to batch content. You don't have to wait for the audio to be trending for you to come up with the idea. Instead, you can come up with the idea first. You can even find all of your B-roll clips, all of the footage you're going to pair with it. You can write whatever the text is going to say. And then the week that you have it scheduled to go up on your content calendar, that's when you can actually start looking for the audio that you're going to use. So my personal workflow for Reels at the moment is that I plan the concepts a month in advance, and I know what that text is going to be. I've even picked out some of my B-roll clips that I'm going to use. And then throughout the week, like the week that I'm actually going to be posting the planned content, that is when I go ahead and execute on the content creation of it all, and I start looking for the audios to use. And the reason why I like doing this is because it allows me to plan an entire month of content and feel like I have an overall mission or purpose to that content, because, you know, if you're only posting on a week by week basis, it can be easy to like lose the plot in a way. And if you want to do any like larger scale promotions or larger scale campaigns, it's hard to like see that on just the week to week perspective. So you can plan your content in terms of a month or even a quarter if you were really ambitious, but then just take those concepts and adapt them to whatever the trending audio of the moment is. And it's still helpful because you have that benefit of the longer term vision and longer term purpose. And it's less work for you in the week to week because you've already got the footage picked out and the text already written. You just need to find an audio and sync it all up. In some cases, it might be as simple as finding an audio with a template, inputting your clips that you've chosen, and putting your text over top. So that's how I approach it, because I really have realized like every Reels trend, it's kind of the same. It's just a different audio that has a slightly different vibe, and then B-roll and text. So you can come up with the B-roll and the text, and then you can kind of wait until you find the right audio that has the right vibe for the message that you're trying to send. And that way you have the benefit of planning ahead and also the benefit of taking advantage of trends. So that's how all of this kind of works together. But just bringing it back to our final 15 minutes of our planning process here, you're taking those concepts from your database and you're actually assigning them to dates and to format. So, you know, the reel on Monday, the carousel on Thursday, etc. And by the end of this 15 minutes, you'll have a content calendar that is full of concepts that are inspired by not only what's performed well for you in the past, what your audience is asking for now, and what you're seeing is successful on Instagram at the moment. And with all of those inspirations, you're able to create a really strategic and intentional content calendar that is now ready for you to execute on throughout the month. So you have now planned your work, and now moving forward, you just need to work your plan and actually create all of this content. So that is my ultimate content planning routine. That is how I come up with ideas for my Instagram. And I hope that you've enjoyed coming along with me. I hope that you've also enjoyed coming along with me for this entire season of the Creator Club podcast. I hope that for our new video viewers that you've enjoyed the video version of the show. This is going to be the last episode in this season of the Creator Club podcast, but don't worry, we will be back very, very soon. We're planning to take a short hiatus for the month of April. I'm going to be doing a lot of batch filming again for season 2, which is going to be great. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you stick around for that. And I just want to say thanks so much for tuning in and for coming along for this new experiment of a slightly new version of the Creator Club podcast. If you've enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate if you would leave a rating or review on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching here on YouTube, just leave us a comment letting us know what you think, because we've put a lot of effort and energy into the podcast. When I say we, I mean myself, but also Shelby from the Creatorly Media team. And I just really hope that you've enjoyed this season and found it valuable. And as a Creator Club podcast listener, you are able to get a free trial of Dash Hudson, my favorite social media analytics platform, when you go to dashhudson.com/Creator Club. So make sure you go check that out. And thanks again to Dash Hudson for sponsoring this season of the Creator Club podcast. We couldn't have done this new fancy video podcast setup without their support. So everybody go check out Dash Hudson. A big thank you and shout out to them. And once again, thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next season of the Creator Club podcast, coming hopefully in May. So I'll see you then.